Good morning, Bananimators. Tracy Strong here, friendly neighborhood animation generalist. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about backgrounds. So I have two backgrounds here from Howl's Moving Castle because the luxury about a feature film is they can put a lot of time into the background. And some of the older Disney movies, especially if you're looking at organic environments, you want to look at the Jungle Book. Unbelievable backgrounds in that. We had to, when I was in school, they had us do pencil renderings of those types of places. And even now, when I'm doing some of my kind of jungle backgrounds, I still think back to some of the things that we were looking at in those backgrounds back 20 years ago when I was in college. So one of the things when you're looking at animation backgrounds is the background is the stage, just like a stage play within the thing that you're doing, especially if you're working in 2D. Like, we can't run around with cameras. Like, if you're watching Zootopia, what in the world? Those backgrounds are absolutely expansive, real environments where you can go in and around. There's just so much stuff. 2D doesn't do that. We just don't have the time and resources to do, unless you are, is it Richard Williams that did that? The Prince and the Cobbler, is that what it's called? Oh my God, I'll put the name of the video. But he actually hand drew a city rotating because he's out of his mind. It's just too time consuming. So when we're looking at backgrounds here, you know, if we have our little character here, they can walk down the street and there's a clear place for them to exist, or they can walk up the steps. When we are thinking about animation, we have these what are called overlays. Boop. So this is just something that the character can walk from behind. Sometimes you'll have something like a lamp or something like this coming out, and that adds visual interest. Also, you can parallax those. So if you're looking at a long distance, the sky seems to move slower than the things right in front of you. Like if you're driving in a car, that's called parallax. So in Harmony, we can do that by actually moving things farther away from the camera or closer to the camera and give ourselves some parallax that way. Or in 3D software, in flat programs that don't have any Z depth, then we just manually move it a little bit faster, whatever the overlay is, to get that sort of thing. So when we're thinking of background, we have the background itself, like the sky, the very farthest thing away. And even this I would include in the background, like any of the really, really far elements. Then we have the midground. So that's like this stuff is included, like this over here and this over here. Any of this I would call midground. And that's where you want to have the most contrast and the most detail, because this is where you want people to look. And in this background in particular, they use light as well. So very cool, very dark and cool. And in here, it's the warmest place. And it's going to bring us into that center by using light as a tool to get us to do that. And then you have any overlays. Like I said, that just adds visual interest. A character can come out from behind this, or a character can come over here. If we had a character just like sneak into frame over here and look, and we had our other character over here on the Maboober, it's like they're sneaking in and looking. So those different elements actually have a lot of power in the storytelling when you're designing your background to think about these kind of things. Okay. We can also look at things like shape. Like buildings can seem very, very complicated. But when it comes down to it, this is a cartoon house, right? It's just a little triangle house, and it's got things that are breaking up the details. Like here, we've got this part down here on the bottom, which is breaking our house up into about a quarter. So the bottom quarter is white. And then you've got these boop, boop, boop. So that's adding a little bit of interest. And then we have our little boop, boop, just to break up that shape. But if you take away the background itself, that's what we're looking at. It's no more complicated than that. Just simple shapes. And then boop, we have a triangle here with a road. So this shape here, it's bringing us over here. And this actually also is a stop. Like now we can't go out of frame. Like if this road continued over here, we might want to like look over there and see where it's going, but this stops it. It takes away that line. And we also have like this line that's being stopped. All of this stuff, that's where our perspective would be. So we can use these things to find our perspective while we're here. Boop, 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 boop. See, we can look at where's the flattest stair about there. So that would be where our vanishing point is, right here for those ones. And all of those are going off this way, right? And if we wanted to find our other vanishing point, whoa, that's way over there. We have some other things that are helping to distinguish, like, what can we do to make this where people are looking? So warm tones, we've got this big warm part here and this light. We've got the high contrast. So here, this door is quite dark and this is quite light. So we have a high contrast, high detail area. Look at these little bits and bobs here, all the little hats and stuff, little text. We got like sort of filigree on lights. These lamps are detailed, little squigglies here, lots of little steps. There's just a lot of things in this area, as well as up here, that are drawing our eye. This is the most colorful area. This all over here is all gray. So we have like a warm gray and a cool gray, but for the most part, we don't want to look over here, right? And even this, we've got a little bit of color on the light from our like beautiful lighting coming in here. We've got that like morning sun, I think it is. Might be evening sun. I think it's morning. But it's nowhere near the saturation of these here. All of this stuff is bringing in with color contrast, right? We also have this is actually kind of pointing that way. Boop. And, you know, if this is going that way, it's also going this way, right? So we can draw all those lines coming up this way. And because our, like, this is sort of where everything starts going this way, or everything starts going that way. This, again, is just sucking us into that area. Everything they're doing is doing that. We have this roof this way, this roof this way, and then this roof is that way. Contrast. So there's big shapes in here that are being used very cleverly to make this the biggest focal point. There's contrast. There's all the lines are diverging on that area. There's color, saturation, and warmth that's bringing us all in there. Contrast in these big masses. That's adding contrast, making this the most interesting thing. Everything in this background is saying, look at me. This, look here. And we have an interior. So one of the things I love about Howl's Moving Castle is the richness of the environments, like of this hat shop. It's so beautiful, but they're still using the same techniques that we saw in an exterior background to create that focal point and that area where we're drawing our interest. So in here, that's our like warm light. Like this is a reflection of that light here. Like, whenever we see mirrors in animation, we're like, oh no. And if this was TV, this would just be blue, blue-gray. I didn't add a layer. I have to add a layer. Boop. So here's our stage area. This here is where the character can come in and do stuff and interact. And if you're drawing backgrounds for illustration and the background is the point, then you'd want to have the background's focal point be something about the background, right? Like the house could be the focal point, like over here. The house is the focal point. But in this case, we want this to be a stage. So we have our overlay like this. All of that is overlay, and the characters can come in behind it or whatever, or it can just be there as an element of interest to bring depth to the scene. This is our stage area, so wherever the characters are going to come in and do stuff. So if we put our character here, we put another character here. That lady is like way bigger than this. I should be like, hello. And Sophie's like, oh no. Right? So there's an area for the characters to play, but in here is where the artist decided that we should be looking. Like even the light, because they chose these smaller light sources, the light only pools so far and it gets colder and colder and emptier as you get over here. So this is nice and warm, and this is cool and gray. This is nice and warm, and over here we get cooler and darker. All of these are acting like a frame, like that, so that everybody's gonna be looking in this area. Everything outside of that is filling up the screen, but acting as a way to really push your eye into the place where you're supposed to be looking. Because that's when you're doing a film, if you only have a 2-second scene, you want everybody's eyes to be in the place they need to be to see what they need to see. And this is some of the ways that people can do that. So we also have these leading lines coming in this way, right? So all of that stuff, like it wasn't random. Like this hat could have been this way, right? when they were making that decision, and designing is just a lot of decision making, they could have had all the hats do that. They had that option as well. But they did this because now everything is pointing into the scene that way. It was very intentional. This is keeping us from leaving. So it's not that way. No, don't go that way. Go that way. And then up here, right, there's this stuff. It's like, no, you're not allowed to go out that way. There's barriers. There's visual barriers of darkness that are saying, you can't, eyes, get back in there, eyes. And here as well, no, you go this way. This is the way you were going, eyes. And then all that warm stuff is going to pull your attention in there as well. And then we have our highest contrast. We have very dark shadows in here with well-lit things. Here we have like a rim light, which is bright on these elements because the light is coming and hitting that way. But the light is bouncing. It's like, no. Even the light is saying, this is where you stop. Stop going that way. It's just a rim. It's like creating a barricade. Whereas in here, you have all of your stuff is well lit. You have lots of details in here, little stuff like, all of this little detail. Boop, 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 boop. That's drawing your eye in there. This, if you look, this is kind of fuzzy. It's hard to say with this thing, but this isn't sharp. Here in this area, the details are sharper. So that's another, like when you're talking about contrast, the sharpness of the different light and the shadows, that is a form of contrast. So we have a light and a dark right next to each other it's a very sharp line. Over here, it's kind of fuzzed and blurred out. So by blurring our overlays and stuff and our distance, that's another way we can create depth and force people to see what we're seeing. Because if this is sort of out of focus, and this is in high focus, again, our eyes are going to be, whoop. That's one of the more important things about designing a background. You want to use it as a way to make your viewer look where you want them to look. The other thing that's really important is you can tell a lot about a person about the environment that they live in. So like you can see, I've got like messy bookshelves full, well, this is as tidy as it's getting. But it's all full of art books and comics and things like that. So when you look at me and my environment here, I got like the gaming chair. Like, I spend a lot of time in this chair. You don't buy a fancy gaming chair if you're only going to sit at your desk once a week. You buy something that looks cool or like looks aesthetic or whatever. That I've got some like nerdy art influences over here. Like you could see I've got, some Tank Girl and Airbender. We got some different like Disney movie books, the whole How to Think When You Draw series. I love Lorenzo Etherington's art. It's so good. But you can tell a lot about me by the place that I live. Like if you walked around your house, you'd be like, okay, I get this person. So when you come into this hat shop, it's telling you the environment this person lives in. And the wonderful thing about Howl's Moving Castle is Sophie doesn't fit. Like when you have Sophie in here and she's wearing her like little blue dress and she's all like meek and stuff, she doesn't suit the environment. She's contrasted to it. She's very plain and quiet and simple. And she's in this really rich, gaudy, expressive, detailed environment. That's not where she belongs. And that tells us a lot. And it's a little bit less obvious in the exterior, but this is the most beautiful detailed place in the thing. You could tell that it stands out amongst the other people. So whoever owns this hat shop really wants to stand out. Like you don't have this kind of like big stuff and like brightly painted walls unless you want people to see your house and look at you. So when I'm designing a background, I think about the character who lives in that environment. One good thing to do is think about a character's bedroom, and that will say a lot about a person. Like if you have a very sophisticated adult person who wears a tie to work and a suit, and he comes home and his bedroom is full of toys and comic books, that says a lot about him. Like he's masking to live in a world of professional, uptight stuffiness. But when he goes home, like he reveals his true character, because that's where you are yourself, hopefully, is in your home. I just find it really fun to just doodle stuff like this. I love drawing exteriors and woods and forests and things like that. I do have a recommendation for people who are interested in layout drawing. It's called Phil's Design Corner, another YouTube channel. really great stuff, like a lot of good organic drawing and stuff. I've recommended him before. That's a great place to go if you want more videos on learning backgrounds sooner, because best I can do is one slapdash video a week right now. I'm starting to get used to the new job. Like I've got more energy and stuff in the evenings. So we're going to get back to doing something a little bit more thoughtful. But for now, thanks for dropping by. Like, share, subscribe, all those things internet people ask you to do. And I'll see you in the next video. Need something that will show up on the thing. That'll do. That'll do, pig.